Hey, what's up? This is JT from JT's Chronicles, and welcome to my new show, Positive Cape Cod. My second guest from my second show is somebody who I looked up to when I was younger, not because of my height, but actually because he was doing things that were unheard of, that we were just like, Keith Rosary, yeah. Like when you hear about somebody, but you never get to actually see it, and then it just kind of like rises, and some people say, oh, that's an urban legend. No, what this man did is true. It's inspirational, and we're gonna go from the beginning to the middle to where he went to coming back to where he's at now. So meet my friend, martial art expert, bodyguard, actor, director, a little bit of everything, inventor, physical therapist, mentor, Mr. Keith Rosary. Talk to us. How did you start this life that you call?
Well, I was always a little
spectacular,
adventurous little guy.
Okay.
When I was growing up. My dad was a professional boxer.
Mm-hmm.
He got me started in boxing, and I believe he really wanted me to be a boxer. But as I got older, I saw Bruce Lee on a movie, and it changed my whole thinking. The excitement of Bruce Lee and the movements that he did just really was something that I was drawn to. So I started doing martial arts, and it took me about 9 years to get my first black belt.
Okay.
And then I started doing another style. I went to Boston on the weekends while I was in high school. Started studying, and back in the 60s, 70s, it wasn't really looked. It was frowned upon to study another system. If you were studying Taekwondo, they didn't want you to do karate. They didn't want you to do jiu-jitsu. And I started sneaking up to Boston taking kung fu, and my instructor here found out about it, and they kicked me out of the studio.
Oh.
So after about 2 weeks, I started getting calls from parents from the studio, from my old studio, saying, my kids really like you. We want you to teach the kids, but, you know, they want to quit now, so why don't you start your own studio?
Right.
I was 15. I didn't know what to do at the time, so I asked one of the parents, well, how do I do that? And he said, you have to get a business plan. So I wrote a business plan by hand, and I started to walk around to the businesses. Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chips was one of them. Burger King was another one. And when I got to Burger King, they laughed and said, you're asking for money, kid? And I said, yeah, I'm trying to start a studio. And he said, tell you what, whatever you raise today will match. So I left there, and I made $1,000. Came back, they had to give me $1,000. So I had $2,000. I went down with my mom looking around Hyannis.
Yeah.
We came around back here, and it said for rent. I came in and rented it, and I was 15 in high school and had my own karate studio.
Incredible. There's a few. Now, Keith is a true Cape Codder. When I say it, right?
Born and raised.
Okay, so the Rosary family, Maddox. All right. So you understand, like when I say Cape Codder, you might hear slight accent. This is true, and a couple of people have done what Keith has done in the aspect of studying at a young age and fighting through it. So I'm saying this to some of you kids that are watching at home, just about following your dreams. So fast forward, you're the youngest person I've ever heard of having their own martial arts studio.
Yep.
And took that and you into high school, and you did what?
I took that dream, and I knew that I wanted to compete internationally. So I won the U.S. Open, the national champion, the state championship. And then I decided I want to do movies.
Okay.
After watching Bruce Lee and seeing some of the other masters that I grew up watching, they started getting into films. I decided that's what I wanted to do. So California was the way to go.
Of course.
So I told my mom I'll be back. I'm going to go to California right after I graduated high school, and I said I'll be on TV in 2 weeks. And they all laughed. Everybody said, are you crazy? Who do you know out there? I said, nobody, but I'm going to go do what I got to do.
Right. I'm Keith.
So 3,000 miles. I raised a little money before I left and didn't get a job for 6 months. The buses were on strike. We were in the worst part of California, in the ghetto, not knowing where we were going.
Right.
And So it was rough for the first 6 months, but we had to persevere. And I finally made it to Hollywood and fell in love with it. Got an apartment and started struggling. They said you have to struggle to make it, so I was ready to struggle.
Right.
After about 6 months, I answered an ad in the LA Times from a place called the Hollywood Palace. I went there and it said, must be an expert in martial arts. When I got there, there were 40 slots open for the elite security squad at the Hollywood Palace. You had to be 21, I was 17. So at the audition, I did very well the first day, and then they said, you have to come back for a callback, bring your IDs, and be ready to join the crew if you make it through the next audition. So I was like, oh my God, I don't have an ID. So a friend of mine told me where I could get a fake ID. Went and got a fake ID, came back that next weekend, got the job, and they put me on the front door of the Hollywood Palace. At the time, it was a celebrity nightclub. So I met everybody that you can imagine came there. And about 3 months after that, a guy had been watching me on the door, and he said, I have a bodyguard company I want you to come try out for. First, you got to take this course. So I had to take evasive driving, firearms, and bodyguard professional skills.
Nice.
So I went and did that. Got a roster of clients I started working for. Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, Prince, the Jacksons.
Okay.
Anyone that you can name, I've worked at one of their concerts or worked overseas with them. Got to travel a lot, got to meet a lot of people. Producers, directors, NBC, ABC, CBS, they all had their Christmas parties or premiere parties at the Hollywood Palace, which was my second home.
Right.
So it really taught me a lot.
All right. Now, understand, we're not promoting getting a fake ID.
At
all. Now it's even probably a little bit stricter now, but okay, you did what you had to do.
Absolutely.
Like I'm sure like a lot of people. Eddie Murphy lied when he auditioned for Saturday Night Live.
Yep.
Yeah, he was like 14 or something like that, whatever. Got a name. So that's the grind.
Yes.
You did. You didn't hurt anybody.
Nope.
And you didn't go out there alone either.
No, I went out with a friend from high school.
Right. Okay.
Yep, Charles Bailey Gates.
Yep. Okay. I was going to say, I think you remember going out with some people. So, all right. So, for me, understanding everything that you were doing back then, I was like, Keith Rosary is special security and bodyguard for. Give me a couple names that'll just make it just.
Janet Jackson.
Yeah.
Eddie Murphy. Prince. Rick James. Rick will make you go. Eh? That was my uncle. Rick was like my uncle. He called. He said I was family. So
Okay.
It's a little different. A lot of actors, a lot of models. Tyra Banks.
Can you tell me anything that won't get you to incriminate yourself? Just give me one little story on anybody that we might be surprised. Not something that we haven't already heard about that we know.
If Prince, Eddie Murphy, and your favorite comedian were having a laugh off, who could be the funniest, Prince would win.
Really?
Prince was the funniest person. He also could play basketball excellent.
Dave Chappelle says it.
No,
Really?
He was awesome. And I just think people didn't know that side. He was shy and quiet and all that, but when he was with his peeps, he was very funny.
How did you feel? Where were you when you found out about Prince passing?
I was actually here teaching a class. Same with Michael Jackson, who was a friend. My wife called me, and I was really, really heartbroken because not only were they my clients, they were my friends.
Right.
A lot of them became really close friends, and the fact that he was alone really was hard for me. Still is, because he didn't like elevators. Died in the elevator alone.
Strange. Sad.
It's a lot of strange and sad things about that, and it's still kind of wrong.
Yeah. What brought you back to Massachusetts?
I had been there for 25 years.
Yeah.
Lived a really great life, and every 2, 3, 5 years I would come home. My parents would be older. They got a divorce. Then my dad had a stroke. you need to be around your people. My parents were there for me when I was young. They allowed me the opportunity to go to California and to live my dream. They worked extra hard to give me that privilege. So you have to come back and give back. My parents needed help. I came back and helped them. And I was really glad because my mom passed a few years back, and I was glad that I was here to be with her.
Good, of course.
And to just be in her presence for the last, 13 years, so it was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I had done a lot of things, traveled a lot, done a lot of movies, television, stage, recording sessions. I had really lived 100 lifetimes, and I was still teaching. Two of my karate students there have a studio in California with over 300 students, so I go back and forth for that. And I have a lot of my best friends are in California. People that I grew up with here know me to a certain level. I was 17 when I moved to California, and I stayed till the age of 40. So some of my best friends and the best people in the industry, or just regular folks, were really close to me, and still are.
A lot of discipline you had. You had to have a lot of discipline. Just rolling back for a second. Scariest moment you've ever had working in security?
I was just on the story the other day. I was working for the Red Hot Chili Peppers. They had a huge concert, and the warm-up band, I forget who they were at the time, were smashing up their dressing room. And the owner of the club said, "Keith, you gotta go take care of this." So I went in, told them they had to leave, and they had a little Irish manager, I'll never forget. And he said, "Take it easy, guy, take it easy. We're going to be okay, everything's going to be all right." They said, "All right, you're breaking up windows." We had those Hollywood lights with the bulbs around.
Oh, yeah,
the
right,
bulbs
right.
out, and they were smashing them. It was crazy. When we get to the exit door, he said, "You're being a little rude. You need to just settle down." And I was 17 at the time, and I was really mad that they were so, rude with what they were doing. So as I went to kick them out, the guy said, "Do you want to fight? Then just come out here." And being that I was this young martial arts expert, I said, "Well, let's go." And as soon as I got outside, he turned around and said, "I'll just shoot you." And he took a gun out of his waist, and he had his hand like this.
Yeah.
And I just went like this, and he shot.
Really?
And it probably would have killed me if I didn't have martial arts expert, techniques that I could use. And he ran in a cab, took off, and I realized how close and how fragile life was. Working for somebody else to protect their property.
Right.
That was one of the scariest parts.
You're back here. You're doing well. What was your reaction when you left Hollywood? You came back here because you hadn't been here for how long? Hadn't you been visited the Cape, and just to see what it was like now?
Probably 6 years before I came back for the last time. And I didn't really have a plan to stay. I came back, and I was supposed to stay for 10 days.
Okay.
I had brought, prior to that, most people don't know, but I brought a girl home to meet my mom. I had never done that before. It was a special girl in my life. And we were supposed to go back to California on 9/11. I would have been on the first plane had we been on time.
Oh, wow.
This girl didn't really know about the hour-and-a-half trip that it takes from here to Logan, so we were rushing back, and she was really somebody who was a late person. So by the time we got on the road, I was really furious. I knew we wouldn't make it, and we ran up to the terminal, and it just taxied out, and the lady said, "Sorry, we can't bring it back." I was furious. I was yelling on the way back, and I was just so mad because I was starting a new job with Prince, and I had to get back to LA. When I pulled into my mother's driveway, we take another hour-and-a-half drive back home.
Right.
My mom had seen the plane hit the tower, and they kept showing it over and over, and people were calling saying, "Oh my God, Keith was on that plane." And by the time I got back to her, my mother came out and she fainted in the front yard. And I was like, "What is going on?" I thought my mom had a stroke or a heart attack. So I ran and found out that the plane had just crashed into the tower, and that was the plane I was supposed to be on. it was a shock. Planes were on strike for 6 months after that.
Yeah.
So I couldn't go back. Once we were able to go back finally, they contacted me to do a show about the people who were supposed to be on that plane, and I declined to do the show because it was really kind of a sensitive situation for me. But I went and started working for a new club there, and then didn't come back for about 5 or 6 years. And then when I did come back, I was only planning on staying for 10 days. I went to this big party a friend of mine was having, and all these people, I was trying to get away from the Hollywood scene because I'm in nightclubs and restaurants and production, and a lot of it is fake.
Absolutely.
A lot of it is phony, and there's something about the Cape, there's something about the realness of the East Coast that I always loved. That's where I'm from.
Right.
So I needed some of that. I needed some love from my family. I needed some of that. I came home, I went to a party, I met this girl, and about 6 girls surrounded the table. Everybody was trying to get in movies, and they wanted to know what I had done, and they wanted to know who I was bodyguard for, and I was like, all of a sudden, the crowd parted, and this woman came up and said, I hope you know we're going to dance later, and walked away, and all the girls went, who was that? And I went, yeah, who was that? All of a sudden, play that funky music, White Boy came on, and we danced, and that was awesome. I was finally like free just to be me.
Right.
And that was the end of the party. So I asked her if she wanted to go for a drink, and we all went out after, and a year later I was engaged, and that's the woman I married. So that was the real reason why I didn't go back.
Yes, because I do recall seeing you out a couple of times, and I was like, this boy ain't going back.
Well, the thing about it is I had a beautiful house in Hollywood Hills, brand new Mercedes, no kids, no dog, no family. I was sitting watching overlooking the beautiful San Fernando Valley from my Hollywood Hills house. I had celebrity friends. I had a great job. I was making a lot of money, but there was an emptiness.
Right.
I would come home. People would have their minivans with the dog and the kids. They'd be going to the beach, and it was like,
having Jag and Manchu.
right. So it was. I was being pulled.
Sure.
And I missed working with kids.
That's good. You're doing a great job with the kids. I mean, I even my son started off with you, and he was 5, and he loved it. Yeah, he had a good time in, but sports and everything, and the kids go. But you keep having followers in your name. It has a good following, and there's trophies here.
I've been inducted in the Hall of Fame 4 times. They just did a publication, The Who's Who of the Martial Arts.
Yeah.
The Legends Edition, which they added me in this year. And it was a really great honor. Some of the people that I grew up watching and hoping to be like were inducted too, so I'm honored to be part of that.
That's huge. With everything going on in the world and the community, and how we take care of our area, everybody's doing something to try to bring it back, and it's contagious. The positivity is contagious. What do you do? What do you feel that you're doing and that you want to keep doing to help that growth?
The most special part for me is mentoring kids. There's a lot of people that will never experience some of the experiences that I've had. They won't have the courage to take chances to even try to have those experiences. So I'm trying to mentor kids, to lead them in the right direction, to give them the knowledge that it takes to get started in something and not be part of the microwavable society that we live in, where we want everything so fast.
Right.
That's the big part that's really hard right now, is we live in an information age where we can get information in 10 seconds.
Right.
So everybody wants their meal in 10 seconds. They want their food, their information, everything quickly, and it takes great skill and a great practice to become good at something. So if there's something that you love, do it every day, and find a mentor who's done it, who can help you. There are so many programs. Our martial arts program is a great program, and I call it a personal development program, where kids come in, they learn about their bodies, they learn about their limitations, what they can do, what they can't do, and everybody comes in with a label. I just say try to rise above the labels of ADHD and all of these labels that are put on us. I set the bar, and the kids have to rise to that bar, and it's an excellence bar. They have to be excellent at what they do, and they have to practice, and they have to strive to do it, and I help them to reach those goals. There are kids with no fathers, no mothers, that come from drug-addicted families, that come from alcoholic families. I try to father them and mentor them and to be that guide for them and the example, because what they've tried to do, some of it I've done.
Right.
So you have to find people who understand where you're trying to go,
Right.
and hook up with them. And our program does that for the kids. Discipline is huge. Right now, it seems like anything goes in our world. Where are the morals? Where's the guidance from the adults?
Right.
So we have to really mother and father our kids and tell them who they are, show them who they can be, so that they take the right path in life.
Right. When those kids are here and they learn from you and they feel protected, they feel wanted, they feel worthy, and they build up their own self-esteem. And I always tell people at home too, and a lot of the new parents and old parents, like, you have to continue that mold. It's not just up to Keith or myself or just the teachers, like, because everything is so fast. Those kids sometimes will look for answers that aren't always correct.
Right.
And at that age of this, and they think what they see on Liebook is always true, and it's not. And we don't want that. So I thank you for what you do, and I thank you for being part of my life also, and being another person that I've seen grow up and do positive things and come back home. So we will continue to look for people, places, things, events that are positive, and you can hit me up at any point in time, jvtentertainment@gmail.com. JT's Chronicles, it's Positive Cape Cod. Keith Rosary, thank you very much. It's one love, one family, and one community. Love you guys. Peace.